Texas A&M football is currently pursuing a perfect season, and a big reason as to why they've had so much success is their quarterback Marcel Reed. He is a super dynamic player who can both lead and make plays on the field, and I think that's a big reason why A&M is so good this year. Combining that with some great receivers, a good running game, and a good head coach in Mike Elko, the Aggies have been special this year, and they have a chance at making a deep run and potentially winning a national championship. But without Marcel Reed, this would not be possible, and in today's video, we're going to talk about how he got to this point. We're going to talk about how he became a big-time recruit, how he almost ended up at Ole Miss, and just how good he has been this year so far. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you want to support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's go ahead and get started and talk about the rise of Marcel Reed. So football ended up running in the Reed family. His grandfather was an All-American guard in college and was actually drafted by the Houston Oilers and played for the Washington NFL franchise at the time. Marcel's father, Rod, on the other hand, was the former head coach of Tennessee State. His father recounted how he used to often hear noises throughout the day, and at a young age, he heard Marcel frequently dribbling a plastic basketball and shooting it towards a miniature hoop. He said, quote, "It used to drive me crazy. I swore I was going to take them all down, but my wife would not let me." Throughout his childhood, Reed might as well have been a member of the Tiger football team, Tennessee State, as he would attend their practices, dress out in uniform for some of the games, and would even partake in pre-game warm-ups. He'd throw and catch with the quarterbacks and receivers, and Marcel Reed was born to play football. Rod said, quote, "All the players were like, 'Coach, this kid can throw.' At 5 or 6 years old, he was throwing a college ball maybe 15 yards with pretty good zip on it. So I was like, well, he can play quarterback." NFL quarterback Cam Newton also formed a connection with him, as coming off of his MVP season with the Panthers, Newton visited a 5th grade Reed at his elementary school in the spring of 2016. Cecil Newton, Cam's older brother, played under Rod as an offensive lineman for Tennessee State. Not to mention, Marcel also gained a ton of great perspective from studying the game from a defensive-minded father. He watched how he ran a college football program, and it looked like Marcel Reed was set up for perfect success. As a teenager, he simply loved to play sports, as he played baseball, basketball, and football, and in middle school he had that killer instinct. His coach said, quote, "Marcel hates to lose. When I first saw him in middle school, I took him to camp with varsity, and he honestly didn't have a great camp, but I saw his competitiveness, and that stood out immediately." He would have to face a tough decision early on in his high school career about which sport he would pursue long term. His father thought he'd be a really good baseball player and that it was his best sport, but with basketball, Marcel played well enough to earn offers from Tennessee State and NCAA, but he'd end up going all in with football. He said he liked to be competitive and that he didn't like to lose, and that he would use his basketball and baseball skill set to help him on the football field. During all this time, he was growing up in the Nashville area, and he became the first freshman to start a high school football varsity game for Montgomery Bell Academy. His dad said, quote, "That's special and it says something about him. It says something about his character, and it says something about his ability." That would come midway through the 2019 season, and he was extremely raw at the time. Marcel said, quote, "I think back to when I was playing, and it was all just raw talent. I was just trying to find a fit and a speed of the game, and since then I've come a long way." His coach knew he had the ability by the end of his freshman year, and that he would be a very special quarterback as long as he continued to work hard. Reed threw for over 1,500 yards as a sophomore and even had 15 touchdowns. He also used his legs to extend plays, rushing for just over 500 yards on the season. He said, quote, "I used my legs to my advantage." After his sophomore year, he gained offers from Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Ole Miss, A&M, Kentucky, and Vanderbilt, and plenty of other teams were also trying to get him. As a junior, he passed for 1,200 yards with 10 touchdowns, and once again ran for 500 more and 11 scores on the ground. The year before, though, he was still focusing on some other sports as well, and it wasn't until this time that he fully went all in on football and got a trainer. His trainer said, quote, "He can throw it 75 or 80 yards in the air. He has very elite arm talent and is one of the bigger arms that I've ever trained. It's comparable to NFL talent right now." Reed was already a better football player than his father was, and while watching film, he tried to blend himself to be like Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, and Aaron Rodgers. He said, quote, "I can run and get around like Lamar, and I think I have the vision of Russell Wilson and the mental traits of Aaron Rodgers." So where would he end up going then? Well, originally he decided to choose the Ole Miss Rebels over a ton of other SEC offers. It became clear during the 2021 season that Marcel was enamored with Ole Miss and its offense and their head coach Lane Kiffin. He said, quote, "Compared to a lot of other college coaches, Lane is just pure entertainment." But then things would change. Going back in time, the Aggies and Reed had plenty of mutual interest, but at the time, A&M had taken a pledge from Eli Holstein. He'd end up flipping to Alabama, as we all know, and this all of a sudden would open things back up. When the Aggies were searching for a new quarterback, they tried to go after Reed, but he really wasn't too interested. Then Reed caught wind of rumors that Lane Kiffin could go to Auburn, so he decided to keep his options open, and eventually he would commit to Texas A&M. As a senior, he completed 59% of his passes for 2,200 yards and 27 touchdowns. He became one of the first players to start all 4 years of high school in private school history in the Nashville area, and his head coach said, quote, "Marcel's ability to extend plays make him exciting. He has a great arm, he can make throws, is very athletic, and is a playmaker back there. There's a lot that Marcel can do at quarterback, and it starts with his arm and ability to run." So it looks like he had a good arm and was very athletic, but with him being really short and kind of skinny, there was a lot of schools that weren't too high on him. Still though, he was considered a 4-star recruit, as according to 24/7 Sports, he was a 4-star player, the number 20 quarterback, and the 295th best player in the class of 2023. So how would Marcel Reed do in College Station? Well, when he arrived, he was seen as a dude with pretty much endless potential. His head coach said, quote, "Marcel has so much potential. He's around 175 pounds now, so he's going to get in there and get bigger, stronger, add weight, and focus on the sport for the first time in his life." When he arrived at College Station, he joined an Aggie quarterback room that already included Max Johnson, former 5-star Connor Weigman, and Fresno State transfer Jalen Henderson. Throughout the season, though, all 3 of those guys would eventually get injured, and once they got to their bowl game, Marcel Reed was going to have to play. He was proof that a player, no matter how good or no matter where they start on the depth chart, has to be ready for pretty much everything. As a true freshman, he was going to have to start for Texas A&M in their bowl game, and how did he end up doing? Well, against Oklahoma State, he went 20 of 33 for 361 yards without a touchdown, and he had 1 interception when he threw the ball for a Hail Mary and it was picked off. He also had his first career score on the ground. Throughout the rest of the season, though, he ended up throwing 1 touchdown against Alcorn State and also would make an appearance against Mississippi State. Going into 2024, nobody was talking about him, though. Everyone was talking about Connor Weigman, the projected top 10 pick and future superstar, who, if he could just stay healthy and put it all together in the field, was going to help lead A&M in year 1. Mike Elko had come in to be head coach from Duke, and while A&M seemingly had somewhat of a lighter schedule in the SEC, no one really expected him to be all that good. There was no way they're going to compete in year 1, as there were plenty of other really good teams like Ole Miss, Georgia, Texas, Alabama, Mizzou, and even Tennessee all fighting for that top spot. Well, early on, Connor Weigman showed major struggle, as against Notre Dame, he ended up having one of the worst performances of the season, and Marcel Reed would get an opportunity in week 2. He ended up completing 5 passes against McNeese State, and then would make his first career start against Florida. This would come after Connor was hurt, and in his first career start in the Swamp, Reed would end up going 11 of 17 for 178 yards and 2 touchdowns, with 83 yards on the ground and 1 more score. One Texas A&M site said, quote, "However, even when healthy, it's clear that Reed brings an electricity to the offense that Weigman lacks. Whether it's deep passes down the field or impromptu plays with his legs, the Aggies are better off with Reed handling the reins." Many people thought that Marcel was a much better fit for the offense, but Mike Elko was a bit stubborn and didn't want to give up on Weigman just yet. After 3 more touchdowns and a win over Arkansas, Connor would return to the starting lineup last minute and help drill Mizzou 41-10. This game was an absolute clinic for A&M, and all of a sudden the Aggies were looking somewhat legit. Reed would then have his breakout college football moment, as against number 8 LSU, he would fill in and would rush for 3 touchdowns. They defeated the number 8 ranked Tigers 38-23, and Reed was the starter the rest of the season. He didn't play well in a loss to South Carolina, but had 3 touchdowns against New Mexico State, and then 3 touchdowns and a 4-overtime loss to Auburn. He finished the year playing terribly against Texas, but would bounce back in their bowl game against USC, throwing for 300 yards and combining for 4 total touchdowns. In total, Reed passed for 1,800 yards, with 15 touchdowns and 7 rushing scores. He was one of the better dual-threat quarterbacks, and obviously had a bright future at A&M, but nobody was talking about him being elite. I mean, he was just sort of an average quarterback going into 2025, and this year, Reed has been insane. He had 4 touchdowns against UTSA, 4 against Utah State, and then led them to a crazy road victory against Notre Dame. Faced with a 4th down, Reed would throw the game-winning score to upset the Irish in South Bend, and that's when we knew this team was different. Guys like Mario Craver and Kevin Concepcion have made them a lot different this year, but another thing about Reed is he bounces back after a bad game. After not scoring and throwing a pick against Auburn, he would bounce back with 3 touchdowns in a blowout win over Mississippi State. He then had 2 touchdowns in a win over Florida, and would have 4 touchdowns in a road victory over Arkansas. All of a sudden, A&M was 7-0, and they were considered legit. From there, Reed continued on, as he had 4 touchdowns and an obliteration of LSU on the road, and then had 2 touchdowns and a win over number 23 Missouri. His best work would end up coming against South Carolina, as despite being down 30-3 at halftime, Reed would have 3 touchdowns in the second half and would throw for 439 yards in a 31-30 victory. Today against Samford, he had 3 more, and in total, he has 2,600 yards with 22 touchdowns and also has 400 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns. Reed is leading an undefeated and perfect Texas A&M team, and while it hasn't been perfect, he has been really good. One thing that many will say though is that they haven't played a tough schedule, and I'll admit it. Besides the road game against Notre Dame, none of these teams are really all that impressive, and the second best team is probably Mizzou, and as a Mizzou fan, we're really not that good. A&M has definitely had a cakewalk schedule, but they had that impressive victory against Notre Dame, and they have a chance to beat Texas and go to the SEC Championship. Reed's best football could be in front of him, and while I don't think he'll win the Heisman this year, he's really solid and has really helped Texas A&M football. But what do you guys think? If you're an A&M fan, what do you think of Marcel Reed? How good do you think he could be? And what other players should I cover next? Be sure to let me know down below, leave a like if you support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out one of the videos on the end screen. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.